Um, Good afternoon, our presenters and participants. Welcome to the virtual TISO International Convention 2021. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to thank you so much for the participation and contribution to our annual convention success. We are Nguyễn Thị Phương Thảo and Nguyễn Thị Thanh Hòa as the presentation's moderators. We are delighted to see all of you delighted virtual presents today, especially in this parallel live oral presentation. We do hope that all of you will be able to have some valuable knowledge and experience as takes away a lot of following the talk. Before the presentation, there are a few considerations. In case you have any questions or concerns about presentation, please feel free to leave them in the chat box so that we can gather the information for easy response in the 5 to 10 minutes Q&A section. We gladly welcome Ms. Fiona Dunlop in this 1 hour parallel live oral presentation, which is entitled Assessing Meaningful CPD for Busy Teachers, about our presenters. She is the principal at Wimbledon School of English, London, one of the oldest independent language schools in the UK. She has over 30 years experience in English language training, including such areas as teacher training, business and soft skills training, and academic and school management. She holds an MA in philosophy and an English UK in ELT management. She has written articles for ELT publications, delivered webinars for British Council, and contributed to the development of a British Council continuing professional development handbook for teachers and managers. Please welcome Miss Fiona Dunlop. Okay, so
thank you so much. Thank you to both of you, and thank you to everyone who's joining today. Lovely to see you virtually here, and welcome from London. It's the morning here, so I'm talking to you from London this morning. And as Ms. Thao said, I'm going to be talking about accessing meaningful CPD for busy teachers. And CPD, I'm talking about our professional development. Now, to give you a little idea, I've worked for my school, Wimbledon School of English, for 20 years. And I've worked in English language teaching in general for over 30 years. And I fell in love with English language teaching when I started working in Cairo in Egypt. And I just found such a passion for the students, for learning, and for my own learning and development. And that has stayed with me throughout my profession. And I feel very lucky with the profession that I work in and the people that I meet, including my colleagues in Vietnam. So it's absolutely lovely to be here. I have visited Vietnam a couple of times in person as well, and I hope to again. But what I would like to do in the next 50 minutes is share some ideas of things that have worked for me over the years to help me to develop, and things that I've shared with people in my teams in school as well. Hopefully you will take away some ideas that will work for you with some of the things that I'm going to talk about, and help to enhance and enrich your career in teaching English as well. And the things that I'm going to talk about, they're relevant whether you're a new teacher or whether you've been teaching for years and years. This next hour is all about you. It's about us and about taking time for us, because as teachers, we often forget to do that. We're thinking about our students, we're thinking about our colleagues, our schools, but this is about thinking about ourselves. And if I can just share my first slide, let me just shut this down. There we are. And my belief is that embracing CPD helps us find our professional happy place. And I think that's why I've stayed in my school for the last 20 years. Here's my school here with the sun shining. And you're all welcome, of course. If you ever visit London, come and see me in person. So in the next 50 minutes, this is what I hope to do. I will have outlined the importance of self-reflection in teaching and learning, looked at a reflective tool to highlight our development areas of interest. So as I said, it's all about you, it's all about us this morning. Considered the importance of goal setting, identified a variety of accessible, cost-effective professional development opportunities. Professional development does not need to be time-consuming, and it does not need to be expensive. And I will have provided pointers in implementing professional development into our busy lives. So a lot to do. And one of my favourite quotes here is this quote from a colleague of mine, Keith Harding, several years ago. I'll let you just take a second to read the quote defining CPD. And for me, it's the last point that is really crucial. It's an essential component of our professional life. It's not an extra. Every single little thing that we are doing in our professional lives, when we're in the classroom, when we're talking to colleagues, when we're preparing our lessons, there is a CPD opportunity and a CPD element there. And CPD is something that we don't think, let's do this on a Friday afternoon. It's not a big task. It's not an onerous task. It's something that we can do in little integrated parts throughout our professional week. And so why is it important? Why is professional development important? Well, I've got a number of reasons why I think it's important. It motivates us. If you think about how you feel when you've stretched yourself, when you've put yourself out of your comfort zone, when you're learning something new, when you're reading a new article, when you're talking to a colleague about a new activity, a new way of teaching, it's motivating. And it allows us to stay current in changing times. And I must say, to everyone who's participating at the moment and joining me, you're already there. On a Saturday morning and a Saturday afternoon to be attending such a fabulous conference as this means that you are already motivated and you're already taking your professional development seriously. And all of that, getting different perspectives, allows you to stay current. And it gives you a buzz, a feel-good factor, doesn't it? It gives you a focus. And I do believe that we owe it to our students and to ourselves to keep developing. And when I talk about keep developing, I don't mean every minute of the day. You know, we need to stop and take time for ourselves, but know your own pace, know what works for you so that you are enjoying and growing in your profession. And that in turn feeds into the student experience. And then I do believe that a strong curriculum vitae, a strong CV, a strong background and an interest in CPD allows you better employment prospects and career advancement, but only if you then talk about it. So don't be shy. If you are going for new jobs, if you are looking for promotions, talk about it in your interviews. What do you do? What are your passions? And with that, hopefully, some possible financial gain. And we can always hope, can't we? And finally, if we are all as teachers, as professionals, as managers, taking our professional development seriously, individualizing it for us with our students in mind, then it will only enhance the reputation of the profession. And with that again comes, I go back to the possible financial gain. Hopefully then the profession will be more recognised and have more credibility. But don't just listen to me. British Council say this: CPD enriches teachers' professional lives, which in turn contributes to student learning and overall improvement in the quality of school systems. So it's a win-win-win situation here, isn't it? If we're all, and I think if you think about the opposite of not embracing our professional development, if 30 years into my profession, if I were not still passionate about what I do, what's the opposite? What's the alternative? And I think for me, the alternative is that I would not be happy. I would not be enjoying what I'm doing. I would be bored. I would lose confidence. And for me, that's where this is key to my own happiness and well-being. Now, to start by accessing CPD opportunities, I think we need to look at ourselves. And I think this is key, to do some reflecting. And I always start with looking at my achievements. And I'm asking you, everyone who's online just now, just take a minute. I'm going to leave it in silence for a minute, and I'm going to ask you just to think, look out the window, write it down. Think about what you have achieved and learned in the last extraordinary 12 months. And what then would you like to achieve in the coming 12 months? Focus more on what you've already achieved, I think, because I'm only giving you 1 minute. Normally this task can take quite a long time, but 1 minute, don't go and make yourself a cup of coffee, stay where you are and just think for 1 minute. What have you achieved? If you would like to put some ideas into the chat room, please do. Or if you just want to take your time and reflect, that's fine. Okay, let me stop you there. Now, hopefully, you started to think of some things that you've achieved, because seriously, in any year, we have always achieved a lot, but we don't always stop and recognize it. And we don't always stop and say to ourselves, well done me. Haven't I done well in my profession? Haven't I done well for my students? Haven't I done well for myself? And I think this is important, to take that time to stop and reflect on what we've achieved. And I do this a lot with people that I train when I'm doing training sessions with teachers, with managers. We actually take quite a long time to reflect and to break down what an achievement is, because achievements are big and small. And every day, I practice this every day that I leave work, every day that I leave my school. I just take 5 minutes when I'm walking to the train station, when I'm in the car, to think, what have I done today? What have I done that's good? What have I achieved? And it can be all the little things. I've finished a certain project. I've given some good advice to a student. I've helped someone with a university application. Anything at all. Think about your achievements and start to really build these up, because it builds your confidence. It makes you really feel like, yes, this was a worthwhile day. And from there, you then look at what you would like to achieve, because this allows us to make informed decisions. If we keep reflecting on our professional achievements, then this allows us to identify where our interests are, where our strengths are, and how we want to build upon that. So if I can just move my slide on, it seems to have frozen. There we are. So being aware of our achievements allows us to structure our professional development pathway in a realistic and meaningful way. We can only move forward and we can only set goals for ourselves if we know what we're capable of achieving. I've got so much to say. This is such a passion of mine that I'm also having to look down at my notes sometimes, so do excuse me. So How do we then structure? How do we identify what we want to do? And looking forward then, that is about setting professional goals for ourselves. But it's easy to set a goal that we don't actually follow through. So I want to look at how we set goals that are small and meaningful to us. We must be interested in our goal. So we set smarter goals. And some of you may have heard of a SMART goal. I'm going to look at a smarter goal. Let me just get these up here. So, for those of you who are not familiar with, any goal should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound. And then the final E, I think, is so important. It must be enjoyable. It must be personal to ourselves. If we don't buy into it, if we don't believe in it, we're not going to achieve it. And then reflected upon. And I know there's a lot of discussion during the conference on reflection and reflective practice. And I really do believe that we need to take time and stop and reflect on any goal that we set. Now, this sounds easy, but a smarter goal can be quite difficult to set. So I do suggest that you practice this. And it doesn't take long to practice. But again, this is about reflecting. Maybe you're going to start preparing your lessons this weekend for your classes next week. Start to think of some small, smarter goals. And I'm going to give you an example of a smarter goal. Excuse me if you can hear a little barking in the background. My dog is just about to go out. So a smarter goal. I'm going to develop a bank of 5 to 10 online classroom activities over the next 2 months, so time-bound, specific, by participating in one workshop or reading a CPD article once a fortnight and experimenting in the classroom. I will also share my goal with my colleagues in order to generate ideas. So that's the reflection part, where you're preparing to share the goal and look at how it's actually gone. Obviously, the enjoyable part is a personal thing, so this is relevant to me. It's time-bound there. It is realistic, and that's the important thing as well. It's so easy to get carried away and to set big goals. I don't know in Vietnam, but certainly here in the UK, in the new year, so many people set the goal that they're going to go to the gym, they're going to get fit. And that's not a smart goal. And the gym memberships know that. So a lot of people in the new year in the UK, they sign up for gym memberships, very expensive, and then they don't go to the gym. They go once or twice, maybe a couple of weeks. But the majority of those in the new year, they don't do it. And why not? Because it's a vague goal. It's not a smarter goal. They haven't broken it down. They haven't set themselves little tasks within that goal. Now, due to time, I'm afraid that we don't have time to actually practice that. But if this is still not making too much sense, then please at the 10-minute Q&A, we can revisit this. But I'm going to set you a task. I'm going to say to you, over the weekend or maybe next week, set yourself a smarter goal. Try this out. Think of something that you would like to achieve by the end of the year. And it could be something as simple as connected to your classroom practices in the next couple of weeks. And then I'm inviting you to email me with your goals, or goal, doesn't need to be more than one. There's my email address. Email me with your goals. Start that conversation with me. I can see the people that are online at the moment. Why not get in touch with me? Let me know. We can start a conversation. We can start a dialogue. If you don't want to email me, then share your goal with somebody else, because starting this conversation really ties you into it and it gets you to move on with your professional development. So hopefully that's making sense so far. I'm going to now move on to looking at a holistic reflective tool, something that has worked for me many times over the years. And if you do nothing else after my talk today, I invite you please to try this, because it can be life-changing professionally. So what you do is you get a large piece of paper, or you have a screen in your computer, and you put you in the middle. And then around you, so I've got me here as an example, you identify the components that make up your personal life, your professional life, or a combination of both. So I've got a combination of both here. So the professional in blue and the personal in turquoise. So things that take up my time, things that are my focus, things that define me in a day, in a week, in a month. My day-to-day management, I'm the principal of the school, so I'm involved in a lot of different departments. In my life, my family and friends, very important to me, especially over this terrible pandemic. Long-term school projects, things that we're working on, the development of the school, the development for the good of the students, the reputation of the school, and also for us as teachers and other staff members. My well-being, of course, don't forget that. Don't get so caught up in the working so hard that we forget our well-being. My own professional development, and also my current role as principal and working with my team. They are the things that take up an awful lot of my time, quite understandably, because that is my role. Now, what you do once you've identified your components, you look at the energy that you give to each of these and what you get back. So, for example, if we take my current role and my team, so what do I give to my team? I give to my team energy, time, guidance, advice, patience, headspace. I'm always thinking about them, and then more time. And then what do they give to me? Well, I get stimulated talking to them, talking about the plans, our goals. I have a sense of pride in the work that they do and the work that we all do for the good of the school. They give me challenges, of course. They keep me on my toes. They give me job satisfaction, that people element, working with the team, working with our students for the good of the students, gives me job satisfaction. No day is the same. And also, of course, the social aspect, the interaction with people. So I'm getting a lot, and it's very important here to recognize what we're giving, but what we're getting back. And you build this up on your map, on your mind map here, for each of the components that you have defined. And you're looking at where your energies are going and what energies are coming back. And is it good? It's a real time to stop and take the time for you to reflect here. And this is rare. We often, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm speaking to people that do take this time. But certainly with my colleagues and my friends, we don't do this enough, in my opinion. Stopping and thinking about ourselves. Once, and you don't just do this easily. So what I'm inviting you to do is sometime this weekend, while this is still fresh in your mind, take 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking to start with. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. It takes longer to go and make a cup of tea. 5 minutes to start this. And then once you've started, it's easier to build upon it. And keep adding and reflecting to this over the next 2 weeks. When you're sitting watching television, when you're waiting for the kettle to boil, when you've got a spare minute on your way to work, keep coming back to this mind map, let's call it a mind map, and adding to it and building up a picture of you. This is a very full and holistic picture of you. And what you'll start to see is where you have gaps, where you have time, where you're putting too much of your energy when you could be moving something, because that's the next step. What can we move? And what would be the impact of moving some of your energies to other places? So for example, If we take here, I've got with my current role in my current team, I give them lots of time, then I give them more time. Am I giving them too much? Is it time to start stepping back a little and allowing them to be a bit more autonomous and allowing the team to start to work together more without always having my direction and my headspace with this, and maybe moving some of that time over to my own well-being, for example? What would that do? What would that do, first of all, to the team? It might empower them. They might enjoy having a little more autonomy rather than coming to me or me coming to them. What would it do to my well-being? Well, it might allow me to get back on my bike. It might allow me to start walking more. It might allow me to leave work 10 minutes earlier, and feeding into then my feeling about life in general. So it's playing with this map and seeing the effects that it would have. It's a great tool. It's complex, but it's about you. Take the time to do this. Oops. So I'm inviting you, if you do nothing else, as I said, do this. Work alone without interruption. Be honest, because you're not going to, you don't have to show anyone. Be honest. Put yourself in the middle. Add the main areas that make up your life. And you can focus purely on professional or do what I did and have a mix of both. Consider what you give to each and what you get back. Consider the impact of moving some of these around and revisit over the next few weeks. And what this achieves? Well, as I said, it really allows us time to reflect and assess where we are professionally, which then allows us to focus and prioritize. Where do we want to go? Where are the gaps? Where are my interests? How can I find more time? How can I start to pursue those interests and then set smarter goals? It allows us to consider when to say yes to opportunities, because I'm a strong believer in saying yes to something and then learning how to do it and putting in that time. Rather than thinking, oh my goodness, no, I can't do that. Yes, I can, and then I learn. But it also allows us to consider when to say no, because we're doing too much somewhere, and giving ourselves license to do that. So I hope that makes sense to you. As I said, it is a time for yourself. So I've given you two ideas here. I'm saying, just to sum up, think about the achievements that you've had. Think about the goals that you can set and really look at yourself in detail through this holistic tool. So moving on to something more practical now, we're talking about accessing meaningful CPD. And I want to look very quickly at what's out there. And due to time, I'm going to look at this very quickly, but we will have time in the question and answer, or also if you do email me, to expand on some of these a little more. But there is a lot of professional development opportunities available, and they're not expensive and they don't need to be time consuming. They are enjoyable. Integrate them into our lives. So looking at local professional development groups, ideas sharing. If there isn't one, then start one. Get together with a few peers, a few of your friends, have a coffee after school, chat for half an hour online. Doesn't need to be long, half an hour, 20 minutes even. In-school CPD sessions, again, if your school isn't running them, then why not put yourself forward? We've got nothing to lose. It's all about sharing ideas, sharing experiences, and then learning from each other. Observe ourselves. You may be observed by managers in schools, you may be observed by other teachers, but how often do we observe ourselves? Record ourselves. Write a lesson plan as if an observer is coming into the class. And then after your lesson, look back on that lesson plan and talk it through in your head. What went well? What could you have improved upon, and why and how? So self-observation. Pop-in observations. Ask to go and see a friend, a peer. Again, this doesn't need to be long. I'm a big believer in 10-minute observations. Pop into a class for 10 minutes. Even easier now that we're online. So pop into 10 minutes of class online. Do reflection, lesson plan journals, lesson plan notes, reflecting, stopping yourself. When you're leaving your classroom, why not wait for another 5 minutes and just take the time to make a few notes on how your class went before you walk out of the room. Having an experimental day once a week, where you decide to do something that you've heard a colleague talking about, something that you're maybe not so confident in, try it out. Get the students involved, ask them what they thought. Maybe it's something that you've read about, something you've heard about, something you've watched online. Try it out. I know that, for example, role play. Maybe you're not so confident with role play in the classroom, because you think the students won't embrace it. So think it through, share how you're going to do it with a partner, with your manager, with a friend, or just write it down yourself, little plan. 5-minute, 10-minute activity that you wouldn't normally do. Set up a mentor or buddy system for yourself. If you don't have this in school, introduce it into a school if you're working in school, or just hooking up with a friend that you have professionally and sharing time to talk about your classes, to talk about your lessons, to talk about what you're researching, what you're reading about. Maybe you read the via TESOL, this is a perfect example now. We're in the midst of a fabulous big conference. So from this, find yourself a buddy and start to reflect on what you're taking away from this conference. Embrace some project work. Set yourself something to do that's not classroom based. Volunteer if you're working in a school to move out of your comfort zone. Maybe you've never taught English for academic purposes. Put yourself forward. Putting yourself forward and saying yes will then mean that you will do the research and you will ask for the guidance to help you to be able to achieve that. Simply reading. There are loads of podcasts, there are loads of articles online, there's a lot going on. Online support, blogs, conferences, publisher sites are really useful. Examination sites, Cambridge exams, IELTS exam sites. These are all very useful for giving us as teachers and as professionals ideas in how to move on professionally. And you can see from my list here, none of that has cost any money to myself, to the school. And it's enjoyable, it's engaging, it's interactive, and it's integrated into our professional lives. So what I would do is I would say to you now, which of these appeal to you? And I'm sorry, because of time, I'm afraid we don't have time at the moment for you to tell me. But again, we'll have 10-15 minutes at the end for questions. So think about which of these appeal to you and how might you approach them. This is a very fast introduction to this. So you may have lots of other questions. And again, I will provide my email address at the end as well. I'm more than happy to engage in conversations, to meet any of you on Zoom at some point as well, to have a little discussion about this. It's all about reaching out, connecting, and what a wonderful time that we're living in online, that we can connect and have people to talk to all across the world. So how might you approach these, adapt them, implement them to make them work for you? Because I'm a strong believer in less is more. Don't take on too much. If I go back, don't try to do every single one of these. Don't think, oh, I'm so excited, this is a great conference, there are so many things I want to do. No, focus on one or two that will work for you realistically within your busy life. One or two that will be relevant to you, that you will enjoy doing, that will help your students and will help you. Okay, so I hope that's making sense so far. And here's what we've done, just to round up so far. I've given a definition of professional development, looked at why we should develop or continue to develop, because we're all doing it at the moment. Starting with how much we've achieved, looked at the importance of reflection, looked at setting goals, and thought about what practically is available and accessible to us. I'm just having a little look in the chat room here. So Sung Huang has asked me a question here that I do think I'm just going to take a second to answer this. As a school leader, how do you encourage your teacher staff to develop their CPD? And this is a great question. How do I help develop the staff? Well, I think a number of things. I think it's important to lead by example and to make it accessible for my teams, to help them to set goals, to help them to reflect, to get them on board, to get them to really buy into it. And to show exactly what I'm talking about now, that professional development does not need to be some big add-on. It is something small and constant to be integrated, embraced, and enjoyed by us. And I know this is quite vague, but I'm happy again to continue that dialogue one-to-one with anyone that's interested afterwards. So moving on, if I can, here we are. I want to think about structure here. How do we structure this? And I want to just share with you one tool that has been such a help to me. And that is looking at the British Council Professional Development Framework. I've put a link here to the British Council English Agenda. This has been a real go-to for me. British Council have come up with a framework of professional development for teachers, for teacher trainers as well. And here, introduce this to your peers, to your friends, to your staff if you're a manager. Try it yourself. What it's asking you to do is to identify where you are in your teacher journey. And it then provides guidance for you as a teacher on what's available to you. And it breaks it down to show you the signals of what level you are as a teacher, and then what you can work on in your professional development. It also provides you with warning signals of when you're maybe getting a bit too bored in where you are, and when maybe you should be pushing yourself a little more. It also provides guidance for managers. As I said, it's a framework for CPD. And there's a portal there that has a whole load of advice, articles, video clips, webinars. It really is a great go-to if you're looking for a professional development resource. Then start with this. There are many others out there as well, but this is the one that I'm very much a fan of. And if you go into it and Google me, if you're enjoying what I'm talking about just now, if you just put in British Council English Agenda Fiona Dunlop, it'll take you to a couple of webinars that I have done for this as well. So I'm kind of coming to the end now, and I'm going to just sum up with looking at some hints on how to access and implement CPD into our busy working lives. And this is kind of just breaking it down into more practical hints here. Sorry, the screen is small, but there are quite a few points that I wanted to cover. So building an online network, very important, sharing our ideas. Don't reinvent the wheel. We need to do something again from scratch. So building an online network, there's a great community out there. Be involved in it. Don't be shy. Introduce yourself. Join other groups. You may be a member of Via TESOL. There are lots of others out there as well. I mean, I'm a member now of Via TESOL, and it's great. You know, I'm based in the UK, and I'm talking to people and I'm seeing what's going on in Vietnam. Yesterday, I had a wonderful conversation with some university professionals in Indonesia, really sharing ideas. There are so many opportunities there for us nowadays in other countries. So think outside of the box and get involved online. Be selective. There's a lot of variety and a lot of things available. What are you interested in? And that's where it comes back to looking at your achievements and finding out your interests. What will be useful for your students? What will move you forward? Build in into what you already do. Give it a structure. Don't see it as a separate thing. Integrate it and enjoy it. So even if you're saying 5 minutes, as I said to you, When you finish a lesson at the end of the day, sit in your classroom for an extra 5 minutes and reflect and write down how you feel different stages of your lesson went, what you could do differently next time, and how. That in itself is professional development. Set yourself a goal and then tell people. I do believe if you tell people, then there's more chance you're going to follow it through. Certainly that works for me. Be realistic, but don't sit still. So what I'm suggesting here is get the balance. Don't be running all the time. Don't be doing too much. Don't be trying to develop non-stop. Find your interests and focus on a couple of things that you want to work on and break it into bite-sized chunks. Provide time for reflection and recognize your achievements. You know, I think sometimes the profession, certainly in my role, I leave work, and I'm sure for a lot of you as well, sometimes students are so thankful. Other times you just leave work and you think, my goodness, I've done such a good job today, and nobody's really recognized it out loud. Praise yourself. Well done to you for doing that. Well done to you for delivering those lessons. Well done to you for reflecting. If you feel the lesson wasn't quite what you wanted, well done for reflecting on that. Work with someone, find a buddy, find a mentor, make it enjoyable, do it over coffee, turn it into a social. And lead by your own example, which comes back to praising yourself, self-motivating, and knowing how much is enough for you in your busy life. Choosing activities that are interesting for you. And finally, why not enroll in a short online course? Become a student. See what it's like to be on the other side. There are so many things out there at the moment. This is where it's good to have a buddy, a mentor, to do research, to have your online network. There's so much out there. What will work for you to make sure that you're signing up to something that's interesting, something that, again, moves you out of your comfort zone, for example. So again, quite a few ideas there. I'm just going to have a little look. Okay, there's clarify. Okay, that's lovely. Okay, and finally, just to move on from this, we are talking about development. We're talking about ourselves. We're talking about our own development and really enhancing our careers and our professional well-being. This has not been an easy time for any of us the last 18 months. And so taking that time to look at ourselves and to reflect. We're in the business of development and learning. That's what we do. So make sure we're applying it to ourselves. And on the other side, what I'm saying is, if I can just move my slides on, all of what have spoken about transfers to the classroom, and we do this already. So again, identify it, share it with our students, and congratulate ourselves for the good work that we're doing in the classroom. But the classroom activities that we do, and maybe looking at your classroom practices, are you doing enough of this? Are you helping your students? Because everything I've spoken about applies to the student experience as well. Are we helping them to set goals? And are we doing it in a structured and integrated, less is more kind of way? So that students are not setting huge unrealistic goals. Are our individual learning outcomes, are they working for the students? And if not, how can we make them better? In the classroom as well, reflection is key. Going back over what we learned yesterday, what did the students learn? Looking at tutorial tasks, factoring in review slots. I am a big believer in reviewing what the students learned, but passing it over to them, giving them the autonomy. Every day starting a lesson with, what did you learn? What was useful for you? Because we're all learning different things within the same lesson. And everyone in the audience just now, you will all be taking different things away from what I'm talking about now. So review slots in your classroom. Bringing into the classroom reflective learning journals, giving students that time to be able to look back in order to move forward. feeding that in. Very often, I think as teachers, we often feel that we've got to keep moving forward. But allow time to stop and allow time to reflect on what has been learned, how have we developed as students, as teachers, and how do we build upon that? And reflecting is not only looking at the negatives. It's so easy, and I think sometimes possibly it's human nature to think, oh, I didn't do that so well, I didn't do this so well. No, think of the positives. I did this well and I could do it even better. Building that confidence in ourselves and building that confidence in our students along the developmental journey. So there's a lot there. I'm due to finish, but here is the slide again that I started with. My strong, strong belief that embracing CPD, continuing professional development, helps us find our professional happy place. I believe my passion for my own development and that of my team has kept me in my school for the last 20 years, and I still love it. I love everything about my profession. I love the students that I meet. I love what I'm doing just now and talking to all of you. And that is purely because I stop and I reflect and I think about what's interesting, what's useful, what's helpful for me, my students, my team, and my school. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for listening. You have been absolutely wonderful. Here is my address again. We now have 10 minutes. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If you've got a screenshot of my email address, I would love to hear from you. Please do drop me an email if you want to have a follow-up chat. I've given an awful lot of information there. So if anyone wants to have a follow-up chat at any time, my pleasure to talk to you. So over to you. I am all yours. Let's see what questions you might have. With your question, I'm just going to have a quick check in the chat room.
Okay,
Lovely to see you all there now on the screen as well. I've just been able to look at my screen until now, so I can see lots of faces, nice photos. So let me see if there are any questions. If you have any questions that you want to just shout out, please do. Please unmute yourself. I'm just going back. I can see Swang Huang's, excuse my pronunciation, question again. As a school leader, how do you encourage your staff to develop? Do let me know if you want me to elaborate on that.
Okay, so we would like to share our big thanks for your great presentation, right? And now it's time for Q&A section. And so far, I just received a few questions here, and we keep going to receiving more questions from any of you by typing your questions in our chat box. All right. And so far, I already received some of the questions here. You can see on the slide. Okay. The first one, all right, you can answer about one by one. The first one here, that is the is CDP different from COP?
Very good question. So number one, is CPD different from COP? So continuing professional development, CPD, continuing professional development is the bigger idea of our lifelong development and learning. And how we do that, we can do it in many ways. COP, a community of practice, is one way of working on our professional development. A community of practice, COP, and again, if you're not sure what this is, have a little look online. There's lots of work. British Council have done lots of research and written articles on communities of practice. It's very interesting and it's very straightforward. A community of practice basically is working with a group of peers on tasks, on discussion, on reflection to enhance your professional development. So what I would suggest here is if you work in a staff room of 20 people, and you might be one big community of practice, you maybe all sit and have lunch together and discuss teaching and learning elements and how you can improve and how you can find your areas of interest. But you also might have a smaller group. And if not, form a smaller group. Why not get 4 of you together? My mum actually did this. My mum was a teacher, and she started a very informal community of practice. She was a business teacher, and she had 2 friends who were home economics, cookery teachers, and another friend, I don't know what she did. Anyway, the 4 of them got together for years. They used to meet on a Friday afternoon after class. They made some cakes because 2 of them were cookery teachers, and they always had an aim. They used to talk about how their week had been, what they could improve upon, what things students were talking about, what issues there were, how they can overcome them. My mum is now retired. I mean, look, I'm quite old, so you can imagine my mum. So my mum is now retired, but she still has those meetings with these 3 friends every Friday. It's an enjoyable thing. That is the loose definition of a community of practice. They're getting together as a group and sharing best practice, sharing issues. So have a read online if you're not sure, but these are so accessible. They're so easy to set up. Give yourself an aim with them, and it feeds into the bigger picture of CPD. Swung Hong, I'll do my questions, then I'll come to you. Or no, let me come to you. Tell me your question, Miss Huang.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Phương Thảo, Thanh Hoa, and Fiona. So I just elaborate on my questions before. Yeah, the reason why I asked you this one is I think it's going to be very helpful to Vietnamese teachers and Vietnamese educators. I mean, school leaders, etc. in general. So because in the UK, maybe things, maybe we have more space and time to do it because it's integrated into the program or into the teacher's path when they work for an organization. However, like based on my personal experience only, when I live in Vietnam, or maybe other Vietnamese teachers can also add up to this one too. So usually Vietnamese teachers, they usually pack with a lot of classes and also very crowded like classes too. And as far as I know, it's not really something like emphasized in teaching in daily task or meetings or professional development that is available in the school. So I can see that in Vietnam things are more discouraging, if I have to say. It's a bit negative, but and in terms of CPD, so I wish that like if you can elaborate on it, and have you ever thought about that? Because you say you have some experiences in teaching in Vietnam, then that would be very helpful for teachers or any school leaders who are struggling in terms of time, space, even finance to do this. Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. And I think that this is one of the issues, I think, that around the world, teachers are stretched. They're working so hard, and they're often exhausted, and they're not taking that time for themselves. And I know it's easy to say, but I think it's about spreading the message to try to shift that mindset a little and take control for ourselves, because we need to find a little space, even 5 minutes in a day, for ourselves. And that's as much as it needs to be able to reflect and think about our teaching. Now, I've done a lot of work in the past. I know exactly what you're describing. I mean, I have the I don't know how to say it, but I'm very grateful for the fact that I work in a a small private language school, and it has many benefits that I know what you're describing when you're working as maybe a mainstream teacher and you've got a huge program and it's exhausting and you've got huge classes. I know that. I've done a lot of work in the past on how we can prepare lessons to take the stress out of teaching. Because I feel very strongly that sometimes as teachers, we're giving too much. We're like nurses and doctors, certainly here in the UK, and I'm sure in Vietnam, we're giving too much. And it's sometimes bad for our mental health. And we need to find that balance so that we can still give the students a good service, but without it all being led by the front, led from the front, led by the teacher. So I'm suggesting that we start with even taking 5 minutes per day just to stop and think about what we've done and how we could maybe not even thinking about what we've achieved, but thinking, what could we do to ask a little less of me as a teacher without impacting negatively on the student experience? And I think this is a huge area that we can't really cover in a small Q&A. I would direct you again to the link of British Council, the British Council English Agenda, because this really worked for me when I was first working with my staff in school. I had a lot of staff who were juggling a busy work life with a busy family life. And the framework for me really helped to give practical small pointers to, and the teachers, one of my teachers came back and said, this is the most useful meeting she had ever had in school. She'd been in school for 20 odd years, and looking at that framework and seeing where she was in her career and making her feel good about her achievements, and then seeing the little things that she could do to take some of the stress out of her job. So do check that. I'm sorry I can't address that in more detail due to time, but I'm happy to have another one-to-one again with you. Swang Hung, you've got my email address if you want to pick this up, and hopefully I can talk to you a little more. I'm going to move on very briefly to the next couple of questions. So what are the most effective ideas for continuing development, professional development at university? Again, there, I think that what I'm talking about refers to any area of education. And so I think it would be the same in university. And I might suggest again here that you go back and look at the British Council framework, because it really does give you a lot of pointers. Whether we're working in university, primary school, secondary school, whatever, I'm saying, and I started by saying at the beginning, this is about you. This is about you feeling better, you growing in your career, you taking the stress, you taking time for yourself. And that is across the board. So universities as well. What's the professional smart development goal at university? Once again, it's worth starting these conversations with wherever you're working. I'm sure every university, every college, there is a vision statement, there is a mission statement, but I'm a strong believer in no matter where we are in an organization, start the conversation about this. Have a look on the website of where you work. What is the vision statement? What is the mission statement? What are the beliefs? What are the values of where you work? And start talking about this and seeing how it underpins what you do in your place of work. I'm not sure if that makes sense or not, but every organization has a different set of values and ethics. Make these come alive. Start the conversation with your peers, with your managers about these and how they're reflected and how you could maybe feed into them and take a role with them. I'm not sure if we'll get any more questions. I'm conscious of time here to my moderators. Okay, thanks, David. David's put in the link again to the framework, so very useful. I'm just seeing if there's any more questions. Yep, sorry.
Thank you for the questions and the concerns come from the attendees, and also the inspiring and clarification from the speaker Fiona. Okay, but because of the convention time limitation, so I think that our section must finish here, and right. Okay, so I hope that you can have something interesting and inspiring to take away. Okay, and so thank you so much for the participation. And now can you turn on the camera and so that I can take a photo as a memory? Okay.
While people are turning on their cameras, if I can also just say thank you so much. Do reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone. Swung Hung, I would be happy to continue this conversation afterwards as well with you. So.
Okay, right. Thank you so much.